What's up YouTube, how goes it? In today's video, we're having a look at the IdeaPad 5 Pro. I know it's a mouthful, but trust me when I say it's totally worth it. The configuration we have here today has the Ryzen 7 5800U processor, 16 gigabytes of speedy DDR4 RAM, 500 gigabytes of SSD storage. Additionally, we do have the MX450 dedicated graphics on board with a total of 2 GB allocated memory. Additionally, the latest Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.1 standards. And yes, this is a 14-inch touch captive 2K display. More on that later. Also worth noting, we do have Windows 11 on here. And in today's video, we're gonna see if the IdeaPad 5 Pro lives up to all the hype and the legend that it's created in the past, why this laptop is getting so much traction, what it got right, what it might have gotten wrong, and ultimately answer the question of whether or not this is a laptop you've been waiting for. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, sub to my channel, like this video. You have no idea how much it helps the channel grow. Thank you. Starting with the unboxing, I gotta be honest, this is just bland. So basically you get a cardboard box with the Lenovo branding, and that's about it. Now, once you remove the content seal itself and proceed to open the docs to see the content inside, the first thing you'll be greeted by, of course, is the laptop itself. Once you remove that protective plastic packaging, here it is in all its shine and glory, but more on that in a quick minute. Past that, you do have a standard 65-watt charging adapter, and the great thing here is that you do have a USB-C charging right out of the box. That makes me so happy. Also, you do of course have the standard wall outlet cable piece, and finally, it's worth noting you do get the instruction manual, quick start, warranty information right inside the box. In terms of design, the IdeaPad 5 is definitely one of the most gorgeous looking laptops out there. That 14-inch body feels nimble yet premium at the same time. At 3.3 pounds, this is definitely one of the heavier 14-inch laptops out there, but the nearly entire metallic exterior justifies that weight and gives it this really high quality feel. Now, starting off with the top side, as I mentioned, you have a complete metallic finish here to the touch. It feels nice and cool. Lenovo doesn't waste any time with any silly textures or aggressive designs. It's just a flat textureless surface and subtle Lenovo branding in the corner over there. Making our way to the side of the device itself, you'll notice you have a USB Type-C port with power delivery functionality, a HDMI 1.4B port, you have another USB Type-C port, and the good old headphone jack. On the other side, you'll find that you have two USB-A 3.2 ports and a full-size SD card reader, and right next to that you do have two light indicators, one for power and one for when the SD card reader is in use. The bottom side of the laptop, interestingly enough, also has a metallic finish, which is a nice touch of course. You'll also notice you have a dual vent linear setup here. Unfortunately, there's only one cooling fan, so yes, this is a single fan setup. Now, it's also worth noting you do have a speaker grill, one on either side, so this is a stereo speaker setup. As soon as you unfold this laptop, again, you truly appreciate that aluminum alloy finishing for the entire inner chassis. The palm rest has what I consider to be a reasonable amount of space for a 14-inch laptop. Now, unfortunately, the trackpad does have a full plastic finish, but the good news is that it's still a relatively high-quality trackpad. The clicks feel nice and tactile. There is a very limited amount of flex, well within the threshold, again, of a high-quality trackpad, and the click calibration is more or less how I want it to be, and it'll work just fine as a day-to-day trackpad. Making our way to the keyboard, the first thing you'll appreciate is that every keycap, except for the arrow keys, has an ample amount of surface area. Also, the actual keystroke has a reasonable amount of key travel, and every key press feels tactile, but not too loud. You'll also appreciate the fact that the full keyboard is fully backlit with a two-tier lighting system. Unfortunately, you do not get a dedicated 10 keypad with the 14-inch variant. You'll have to opt for the 16-inch if that's an important factor to you. The arrow keys are so poorly designed here again. You have really large left and right keys, but the up and down keys are just... I don't understand the compromise here. It's weird. Also, you'll notice that the keyboard has these misleading grills on either side. These are not speaker grills. They're essentially just passive air intake vents and don't actually serve a dedicated function of any sorts. Above the keyboard but beneath the hinge, you also have the heat exhaust vents where all the hot air comes out of. And right above that, you have the single system hinge. And honestly, it's pretty durable for the most part. There is very little wobble. You can use a single hand to lift the laptop. It's worth noting you don't get a full 180-degree tilt here. As far as the display fitting goes, you have a fairly thin chin at the bottom of the display, no particular branding, it's all black. The bezels on either corner are very modern and sleek looking, they're pretty thin as you can see. Making your way to the top side, you'll notice again you have a relatively thin forehead, and in between that you have a rather mediocre 720p webcam, but rejoice, you do have a built-in IR scanner, so you do have facial recognition on board. In a world full of crappy displays, the IdeaPad 5 Pro definitely shines. So you have a nice QHD plus resolution here, and also a 16:10 aspect ratio. Everything here looks nice and crisp. Furthermore, you do have a IPS panel here, and yes, of course, you do have a standard refresh rate of 60Hz. 90 or 120 would have been nice, but I guess 60 will have to do. The viewing angles are very much acceptable, and yes, there is no PWM screen flickering here, meaning at low brightness level the screen looks nice and stable. Now, it is worth noting you have a fully touch captive capable screen here, and the latency is very little, so you'll have a nice experience. You do not get a stylus with this laptop as it's not a 2-in-1 technically. Past that, you'll also appreciate the fact that you have a 100% sRGB color rating, or about 74% Adobe RGB. Basically, this is a great machine for professional users who do a lot of creative tasks that rely on a high degree of color accuracy. Now, in the brightness department, you have 300 nits, which is not really impressive given the fact that this is a very reflective display. Under brighter settings, I often find the glare just overpowers the maximum brightness, so if you are going to be using this in a lot of bright settings, keep that nuisance in mind. Moving on to performance, with 6 cores and up to 12 threads, the Ryzen 750 800U is no slouch. In fact, when it comes to multi-core scores, it's a total beast. What this translates into is that for most day-to-day activities, this laptop will breeze right through it. You won't notice any sort of disruption, and that's how it should be. But when you really start pushing this laptop to, let's say, start doing stuff like 4K video editing, for example, I did notice the occasional frame drop, and that's not because the processor can't handle it, it's simply because this laptop does produce a fair bit of heat, which I'll talk about in just a minute, and that results in, like I said, the occasional frame drop, but it's still very much a viable experience. Now, in the gaming department, the MX450 definitely holds its ground. It can run games like GTA 5 at higher settings with a steady 30 plus, arguably close to 60 frames per second settings, and even games like Witcher 3, for example, can technically run at higher settings, but I wouldn't call it a dedicated gaming experience by any means. As far as thermals goes, like I mentioned earlier, under absolute peak loads, this laptop is capable of hitting temperatures of around 45 degrees Celsius, but this is only for short periods of time and under maximum load. A more realistic measurement is under sustained loads, which usually hovers just shy of 40 degrees Celsius, which in my opinion is pretty acceptable. And when you're using this machine under lower loads or idle settings, you can go as little as 23 degrees Celsius. Now, in terms of fan noise, at its absolute loudest, this laptop can actually produce a lot of noise at just over 48 decibels based on our test, but like I said, these are short-lived events, and generally speaking, you'll hover around the 30 decibel mark when you're doing sustained load activities, and when you're doing lower load activities, you barely even notice the fan being there. For those of you who wanted exceptional battery life, you're not gonna get that here, but you get what I consider to be decent battery life. So in our test, at 50% brightness, web surfing, watching the occasional YouTube, and even using speakers occasionally, I got just shy of 8 hours of battery life. Now, if you do start pushing this laptop by, let's say, start again gaming or doing 4K video editing, that can drop to as little as 1.5 hours. So there's a lot of fluctuation depending on the activities you're doing. From a sound quality point of view, you do have a bottom firing speaker here with a stereo speaker setup like I mentioned earlier. And the volume levels are quite acceptable, but I do find that it's just not the most impressive speaker as far as 14-inch laptops go. The MacBook Pro definitely has a clear advantage over this machine. Have a quick listen for yourself. By the way, just got in town, and I won't let you in this club, all in the sky, ruin my vibe. Usually I don't do this often, but Here's the summary, guys. Priced at approximately $890 USD for the configuration we have here in the 14-inch model, the Lenovo IdeaPad 5 Pro is definitely on the upper side of a mid-range machine. Now with that said, it does bring plenty of value for what it's charging. You get a fantastic build quality with a complete metallic exterior. You also have a nimble design, a great trackpad, and an even better keyboard. The display on here by far is its biggest highlight. Not only is it touch captive, it provides a healthy resolution and amazing color accuracy. The brightness could have been a little better, but again, great display overall. Performance, while not industry leading, is definitely on the upper side overall. This is a heavy duty machine that can handle heavy tasks like video editing and the occasional gaming as well, thanks to that MX450 chip. Now, past that, the battery life could have been slightly better on this machine, but it's not bad either. And yes, you do not get the Lightning Thunderbolt 4 because this is using the Ryzen configuration, but you still have a healthy variety of ports in general. Overall, I definitely think that the IdeaPad 5 Pro is a great machine for anyone who has either a business-based use case or a productivity use case that has a lot of creative uses like video editing or photo editing or anything of that nature. If you are again looking for a laptop with a slightly lesser cost and similar performance, there are options out there. So don't buy this laptop out of sheer performance, but definitely consider if you want a high quality build with great performance. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you did, hit that like button, sub to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.